one of the joys of being on a MEG board is the how are you doing interviews. Can you tell me a little bit about who's being interviewed for those and why a person might be before the MEG board for how are you doing interview?
Absolutely. I mean, one of our priorities is we want MEG board members to have a sense of relationship with pastors and for pastors to have a relationship with MEG board members. We believe that all good things happen out of the kingdom based on relationships. So we want our MEG boards to be personally aware of who pastors are. We want pastors to have a personal sense of knowing the faces and the identities of people who are on the MEG board. And we want the MEG board to be positioned as a team that supports pastors in their ministry. We want pastors to know that there are leaders who know them, who are invested in them, and who care for them. So the interview we're talking about, the title actually describes the purpose. To say it's a how you doing interview means that we want pastors to come in at least once every 3 years on the invitation of the MEG board to come in, and the MEG board is going to be saying, how are you doing?
So when the pastor's at the interview, what sort of questions is the MEG going to ask that pastor to find out how they're doing?
So there's a number of questions that are open-ended questions, and many times the open-ended questions lead to some specific follow-up questions. But we want the MEG board members to say, we want to really pray with you. So tell us how things are going in your family. Tell us how your health is. Talk to us about what's been going on in your local church. Give us some insight into what are your joys, what are your struggles, and talk to us about what you need. And with those kinds of open-ended questions, the pastor will often begin to tell her story or his story. We encourage, if a pastor's married, we encourage the spouse to come in with him as well, so that there can be a sense of mutual support. And just to be able to really hear and understand what it's like to be that pastor in that community, in that church, facing the challenges that they're facing.
So do you think that pastor would have any questions for the MEG board at that interview?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, the perhaps unspoken question is, do you really care? Is this a formality, or are you really personally invested in my well-being? The pastor might be facing some dilemmas and might have some questions of, how do I handle this? Or I need some help in a specific area. Do you have any recommendations for me about who I could talk to? So the MEG board might be asked to provide some guidance, specifically about specific situations or challenges or opportunities. A pastor might also be intrigued to hear the MEG board saying, as we hear your journey, here's some thoughts we have about the trajectory of your ministry, type of thing.
Oh, that's great. And so what's sort of outcome? So the interview ends, the conversation ends. How does the interview conclude? And what are the sorts of things that might come out of that interview once it's done?
I mean, in general, we say ask the pastor some questions and listen to them for 30 minutes, and then pray with them for 10 minutes. When a pastor is concluded and excused from the room, the MEG board would probably have some reflection with one another. What have we heard? What is our sense of what this pastor needs? There are times that the how you doing interview is simply an affirmation. Things are going great, keep going. There's sometimes that a how you doing interview makes the MEG board aware of some specific counsel they need to give to the pastor, of things that the pastor might need to do to help them get through a challenge, or some things they might need to do differently. Frankly, a how you doing interview might make a MEG board aware that there's certain challenges that they're hearing from numerous pastors, and the conference leadership team needs to develop some training or some resources to help equip pastors to deal with some challenges that the pastors, maybe more than just that pastor, might be facing challenges that they need some help with.
What you'll want to do is check in the MEG board interviews guide before you do any of these interviews, and there's more suggested questions and guidance around how to proceed with the How Are You Doing interviews.